Okay, well, look, hi everybody. Here we are, week 3. All right, and excuse me. This week we're looking at Machiavelli and Hobbes. So what we've done here is we're taking from because remember in week 1 and 2 with Plato and Aristotle, and even the religious, Augustine and Aquinas, right? We went from the really kind of the more theoretical, right? We're moving toward the more practical because remember, I'm sorry. Remember, Plato is very, very much theoretical. This wonderful theory of a perfect world and guardians and all that. And then we move to Aristotle, who says, well, we need to look more maybe at friendship and the practical application of the theory of the best style of government and justice and those things. And then our religious philosophers came in and offer up the idea, well, maybe by incorporating religion, we can now appeal to this, idea of civic virtue that Aristotle and Plato said exists in all of us. I think in terms of, people can realize, oh, yes, it's kind of like being taught, I guess, but people can come to the realization, oh, yes, this is the best way to do things for the good of society, right? The best for the most, the common good, right? And Plato and Aristotle thought that was kind of inherent in people. It's all there, we know it's there. And if it's demonstrated, right, if we see it, Plato with the guardians and Aristotle through friendships, and then we'll all come around and buy into that notion, or apply that notion, maybe a better way to say it. And then our religious thinkers, Augustine and Aquinas basically said, well, but we introduced this notion of morality into it, that a duty, maybe an obligation that we have to do it, and here's how, maybe that will help. Okay, so now this week we're into Machiavelli and Hobbes, and we're starting to look at the reality of power, right? Okay, all those theoretical stuff aside, on what a society should do, what justice is, and all that sort of stuff, and how we get that. Now let's look at the real application, the down and dirty of it. Okay, now we got to create a government. How do we do it? Right? What kind of government will best get us to this civic virtue idea, or the idea of creating a stable society, right? And Machiavelli and Hobbes, Machiavelli in 1512, and then Hobbes in 1651. So we've moved beyond the age of antiquity with our other thinkers. Aquinas was a little closer, but nonetheless, we're moving into a different era of thinking. And now the reality of it is governments exist. So what are the best types of government? And now we start to look at power. What can we allow the government to do, or what can the government be allowed to do to create this society that we want? Okay. And Machiavelli is talks about the reality of what's the best way to say it? I guess with Machiavelli, if we boil it down, well, Machiavelli basically says if you keep people happy, you can keep your power. So Machiavelli is very much a political realist in the sense he understands government's about power. He understands men want power. And the way to keep power then, according to Machiavelli, is once you gain it, you must keep people happy. And if people are happy, then they're going to support you and you mean power as long as you wish. And and Machiavelli said, you can really teach people this, right? And there's certain ways, and I'll cover that in our lecture, but you can do this. But the civic virtue is part of it. And once people see society is working well, the way to keep people happy is keep society stable, keep society working well. And the way to do that is, right, to apply this notion of this idea of civic virtue, or the virtues of society that we need. And people can be taught this, and this can be applied. And when they apply it, then they will see the benefits of it, and away we go. So that's Machiavelli, the notion of you've got to kind of manipulate things. You got, I don't want to say devious, but there's ways to get things done, to get people to do what you need them to do, and to keep society rolling along, to keep people happy, and therefore you will keep your power. Okay, because again, previously our previous philosophers talked about idea of happiness, true, but the idea of internal kinds of things. The philosophers this week are talking about just the idea of raw power. Okay, into the much more practical application of it. Then Hobbes comes along. Hobbes is even more so. Hobbes comes along after the English Civil War and basically says, look, here's the deal: stable society is all that people care about. Keep them safe, keep things consistent, do what you got to do. right? The great quote from Hobbes is, life is nasty, brutish, and short. you know, so for him, as long as the government's keeping things running smoothly, government does whatever it's got to do, right? So this civic virtue that people need to have to be successful, you can use force, if you will, right? With Hobbes, Hobbes is very much, that notion of Leviathan, this big, powerful thing, and that's what Hobbes is about. Okay, so both Hobbes and Machiavelli do understand the notion of civic virtue, the idea people have to behave in a way that promotes the good of society. They just approach it from a little different. Machiavelli is very much more a politician, if you will. Say these things, do these things. Here's what you got to do to kind of get people to come along. And Hobbes is very much about, no, I'm in charge. Here's what it is. Here's the rules of the game. This is how we do it. You follow the rules of the game, or else society breaks down. And hence, living through a civil war. That's where he's coming from with that. Okay, so both of them, though, understand the notion of self-interest, and once again, self-interest gets in the way. Okay, so Machiavelli believed, and Hobbes as well, that the way you eliminate self-interest is you basically put one person in charge, right? You put the monarch in charge, you put the king, whoever. If one person's in charge, now we know who's responsible. Now we know who's going to make the rules of the game, and we can remove that person if things come apart. Okay. The self-interest then is used because it's just a single person for Machiavelli and Hobbes. The self-interest then is used as a positive thing because my self-interest will make me do the right things to keep society functioning properly, that will keep people happy, that will keep things moving along. Multiple people, self-interest becomes a conflict, and they can undermine it, destroys, right? So that's the idea of how they decide to handle self-interest. Government is raw power, no question about it. More practical, not it's theoretical, right? So we get into the idea, and then the government would then use that power to promote civic virtues. And because a single leader, a monarch, is running everything, right? One person, now the self-interest that people have is now used as a positive to maintain that stable and safe society, because otherwise you're out. Okay, so that's kind of a brief introduction on Machiavelli and Hobbes, just to kind of get things rolling along. All right, I'll talk more about it in our live lecture. And again, if you guys ever have any questions about anything, never hesitate to contact me. Okay, all righty. We'll see you later now. Bye-bye.